What is up, you beautiful people? So, every day making notes from news, the Hindu, and things like that is really, really, really hard, undoubtedly. So, what do? I do is at the end of the day, I start watching the daily news simplified from Rao's IAS. And it has pretty good discussion, uh, mainly focusing on prelims and then mains. So, what had been my strategy and what I think should have been my strategy, as I think right now that it should have been that way, then it would have been good. So, starting with, I used to do these kind of see videos initially in my third year and final year of the college. For those of you who don't know, I studied at IIT Dhanbad, and things were pretty different then. Like I used to just copy paste the notes uh, and that text files into my OneNote, and it was that's it. I used to just watch the video and just yeah, done. But pretty soon I realized that should not be the case because if you have only a dumped text, then it is really hard to revise. So what I started doing is making notes on these textbooks copies, you could call it, like these pretty much GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and things like that, or maybe some I have marked with a highlighter on this book on books while reading it, and there's a bunch like 8 to 9 textbooks for that GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and in GS 3 and GS 2 there's there needs to be a bulky notebook because more of the contents are from there. So the things are pretty different. And after filling all these notebooks, I realized many of the things marked on this one with a highlighter and sticky notes. Pretty soon, not soon. Actually it's been like 10 months or 12 months now, maybe 10 months. So I realized that I should. It's not the way of making notes because often it takes a lot of time to see where you have written what because you cannot control F to find what you have written. And if it takes so much of time just to find, because many of the topics definitely you would remember what you have written where, but not all. So that was one of my biggest mistakes while making notes. Second, do not copy and paste the text if you are watching some of the videos from YouTube, from for of any channel. I don't care what it is. Just don't copy and paste. It won't work. I personally use OneNote. It is pretty decent. It's just fine with me. And then the third mistake which I used to do is that I used to make the notes of the prelims things as well. But that is okay, and mains also in my OneNote. So what I soon realized that all the things are just like reinventing the wheel because all of these things are done by Vision IAS, Warjian Ram, or Rao's IAS, and you name it. So it's really easy to go to their website and just download their current affairs monthly maxi. That's it, and just read it the next month. So once you have read the current affairs today, and the same would be coming maybe next month. So you would be revising very soon in a month. You have a motivation to revise it. So that was the mistake. Really was that I was making the prelims notes as well as the mains. So it was just like reinventing the wheel. It was the third mistake. And the fourth mistake could be that I think if you take the printouts of the monthly magazine or like current affairs from these, so it would be like one magazine, one current affairs magazine is like this mistake. So for exam for UPSC, it would be like 15 months of current affairs. So instead of taking printout, you could get a soft copy and then mark with a marker. Yeah, there are so many markers of digital marking, and that would be pretty easier to revise because like this bulky, and it would cost you somewhere around um, at least 5,000 to take the printouts. And what really hard is keeping those things really arranged, and it takes so much time, like taking that those things off the shelf and then revising it. Because if you have that in a folder, I don't know, in it doesn't work in now Windows, but it really does well in a MacBook, that you could just control F and just find the things even from the files in a folder. Even into that file, if some suppose APMC is there and you have 10 such files which you have APMCs in it, so it would find all of these. So it is pretty easy to find those topics and re-revise it more often. And if you have one note thing text, then what you could do is you could mark it week wise, that what you have made notes this week, that you could revise the next week or coming week. But in a notebook, it's really hard. You can't tag it, but in soft notes, you can tag it easily. Tag it week wise, and you could come over next week or weekends whenever you revise it, and just type the week 15, say week 15, and then revise just those of things. But in a textbook, it's really hard what you have written where, because what I generally used to do, that agriculture is at one place in a notebook, and let's say other economic part is some other place. Let's say budget is another place. So hovering around is not that easy in a textbook, and it takes a lot of energy, time, and ultimately frustration. So I would suggest all of you to avoid it. And these are the tricks, few of which I've got it from the current IS, that is All India rank 81 in 2018, and he is a senior of mine, J. Shivani. So I have been in close contact with him. So I would highly recommend that you do at least avoid these mistakes, or you could copy my suggestions, whichever you like. Anyways, that's it.